Everyone tells you the only way to ace your exams is to sacrifice everything else in your life. Your sleep, your social life, your sanity. But what if I told you that's a myth? I was that average grade student for most of secondary school that's tried probably every study method you've heard about. Pomodoro techniques, study apps, writing notes, but nothing really worked. Then I found a study routine that did. It got me all 9s in my GCSEs and it still allowed me to go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week and even go out with friends when I wanted to. This study method literally allowed me to hit my 100 kg bench press right after maths paper 1. Meanwhile, my friends were pulling all-nighters and locking themselves in their rooms, and I was studying half the time that they were. So how did I pull it off? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break down the 4 key steps that I use to study less and still get a perfect set of grades. So section 1 is all about ignoring the stereotype. I feel like nowadays studying for 8, 10, even 12 hours is being glorified. And that's because people have been brainwashed into thinking that time spent studying is directly proportional to knowledge gained. It's like if you study more, you're more respected. And that's probably because not studying a lot is linked with laziness and failure. And that's where you need to completely change your mindset regarding studying. So let's take a step back and think about why we study in the first place. Well, it's to do well in our exams, obviously. Okay, so if the only reason that you study is to get the grades that you want, if I came to you with a deal where you would get a perfect set of grades, but only study for 3 to 4 hours a day, would you take that deal? Well, that's probably the easiest question you've been asked in a while. But if you take a minute to think about it, what would your strict parents think when they see that you've only studied for 3 hours and that you've gone out with friends or done whatever you wanted in the time that you've saved? What would your smart friends think? And most importantly, what would you think about yourself? Would you feel confident to sit your exam, or would you still feel like you've not revised enough? I remember when I first started studying for only 3 hours a day, I would piss myself when my friends would ask me how many hours I studied that day. They'd tell me they studied for 8 or even 10 hours, and since I only studied for 3 hours, I thought I was cooked. But then when we got our mock results back for our GCSEs, I saw that I did better than a lot of them, and if not better, it was really close. So I knew instantly that the method I was using was working and that I only had to tweak it a bit to get these perfect set of grades. So before I get into the actual study methods that I used, I need you to completely erase that stereotype of studying more equals being smart. And you have to be ready to accept everything I'm about to tell you in this video. Ready? Let's get into it. The question I get asked the most when I tell people that I study for only 3 hours is, how do you cover all the content in time? The answer? I use active studying methods in the most effective way while still managing my time correctly. Okay. That sentence sounded like a bunch of productivity BS just stringed together to form a sentence. But let's break it down. First, let's focus on the active studying methods part. You know, it's actually crazy how many people I've seen tell me they're gonna go study, and then I just see them write notes directly from the textbook. That is the worst revision technique you could possibly do, since you're quite literally writing down what's written in front of you. If you look at the literal definition of studying, it's the devotion of time and attention to gaining knowledge of an academic subject. And I'm highlighting the words gaining knowledge because that means you need to be constantly learning new things or developing the knowledge that you've already gained. Think about it this way. If you go to the gym every single day and you lift the same weight for the same number of reps every time, are you gonna grow much muscle? Well, probably not as much as you could, since you're not really challenging your muscles in any way. But it's the same thing with studying. If you're not constantly challenging your mind by learning new things or practicing things you've already learned, how do you expect your mind to retain the information that you're trying to learn? So you need to start using an active studying method. And nowadays there's so many different active studying methods like flashcards, past papers, blurting, and the list literally goes on and on. So I personally used Anki flashcards since it uses spaced repetition, and when I was confident enough about a topic, I'd go and do exam questions about it. And then I used Save My Exams to actually review any lessons or content that I've missed and actually make flashcards from them. But then there's so many other resources like PMT that are also really good. Then when the exam day started getting closer, I spammed past papers. I did as many as I could in the time that I spent studying. And that's because they get me used to the format of the exam and they give me model answers in the mark scheme. For subjects with mark schemes that are so specific, so I remember like biology, I would sometimes even take the model answers, put them into flashcards and just memorize them. Past papers even let you know where your knowledge gaps lie so that you know exactly what you need to be focusing on. Now let's move on to the second part of the sentence, which is managing my time correctly. I remember when I was studying for my GCSEs, my motivation was finishing revision as fast as possible. And that's why I could do the stuff that I actually enjoyed, like going to the gym, working on my business, going out with friends, anything but studying really. If I had spent my time studying, making pretty notes, using different colors to make them aesthetic, or taking pictures of myself studying to put them on my story, then I would have had no time to do anything but study that day. When studying, you have to enter a state of deep focus, where all the time where you're sat down at your desk, you have to be learning new things or practicing the knowledge that you've gained. You should waste zero time doing stuff that you could avoid. For example, making your notes pretty, or calling your friends while studying, since we know that you're never actually going to study when you call your friends. Because remember that on the day of the exam, you won't get bonus points for making your work look neat. Your grade is only based on the actual content that you've learned, and also the exam technique that you've practiced from past papers. So here's how a day of revision usually goes for me, so that 100% of the time that I'm sat at my desk is spent usefully. So the night before, I usually plan what I'm going to study for the next day if I haven't already done so previously. And that basically saves me 20 minutes every single day, since I can get straight into revision when I wake up, instead of still having to plan that I'm going to do maths or English and so on. If it's the weekend or a holiday, I usually try and wake up around 8 a.m. to start my revision as early as I can, so that I can also finish my revision as early as I can. And that basically gives me the rest of the day to enjoy whatever I like to do. Straight away, I open my calendar to see what work I've set myself, and then depending on the subject that it is, I use a different studying method for it. So for sciences, I use Save My Exams to actually review the content and make Anki flashcards from them. And then when I'm confident with the topic, I go do exam questions about it. For maths, I literally spent all the time I spent studying just doing practice questions, because maths is usually just practicing for me. Obviously, if there was a concept that I didn't know or that I needed a refreshing on, I'd go on Maths Genie and watch their videos on that specific topic. And my guy put me on that resource called Westie's Workshop, which basically sorts all past paper questions by topic. Once I'm done making all my flashcards and practice questions for the day, I simply stop studying. I'd make sure that I sync all the Anki flashcards that I did that day to my phone, so that whenever I see myself wasting time, for example just scrolling on TikTok during a long car ride or just staring into the void, I just open Anki on my phone and complete a deck. And this 3-step study routine is extremely simple, which is exactly why it works. It allows me to get my workouts in without any stress, and more importantly, it allows me to sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. And that's the thing with these study marathons. People usually start cutting back on sleep so that they can study more. And once you start doing that, you are sabotaging your own grades. To keep it short, when you sleep, your brain essentially saves all the new knowledge that you've gained that day into your memory. So think of sleeping like saving your progress in a game, because who the hell wouldn't save their progress and just try and finish everything in one go? Finally, let's get into the last and possibly the most important ingredient that I added to my study sessions, and that's deep work. Deep work is a term that was created by Cal Newport, who was a computer science professor at Georgetown University. But more importantly, he was the author of the book Deep Work. In that book, Cal defines deep work as a state of distraction-free concentration when your brain works at its maximum potential. Because we live in a world where there's so many distractions around us all the time. Whether that's your phone notifications, your family coming into your room talking to you, or even your own thoughts can be distracting a lot of the times. And there's even a study that was carried out by the University of California, Irvine, which basically says that it takes around 23 minutes and 15 seconds for you to get back on track after being distracted. So let's just say I'm in the middle of a past paper when I get a snap notification. Well, it's gonna take me around 23 minutes to get back on track to full concentration, even if I don't open my phone. So here's how I make sure that all the time I spend studying is deep work instead of shallow work. First, I set myself a routine that I never break. So on weekends, I wake up at 8 a.m. and study until 11 p.m. On weekdays, I try and revise 1 hour before school if I could that day. If I couldn't, it's chill. I'll just study when I get back from school for maybe 2 hours. And if I could, I'd even study on the way to school and back. Setting yourself a good routine that you never break is going to tell the people around you that this is the time where you need to focus. And it's even going to tell your brain that during this time you do nothing but studying. And once you get used to it, you'll never break that routine. Next, you should also have a study ritual, which is basically everything that you're going to be doing before every study session. So for me, I clean my desk because I like to have a tidy space. When my space is all cluttered, I just can't focus. I turn off my phone completely, and then I set my laptop on Do Not Disturb to get no notifications. I also tell my family that I'm about to go study so that they're less likely to come in and distract me. I then open my calendar on my laptop and just have it in front of me at all times. And basically that allows me to see what I have to study and until when. And that puts a bit of time pressure on me. So I know, for example, that I've only got like 30 minutes left for this maths topic, so I'm more likely to finish it in time, since I'm not gonna really go procrastinate. Because remember, you need to be spending 100% of your time studying, actually studying, not doing anything else, even if it seems productive, like checking your emails or setting your timetable for the next day. So if you made it this far into the video, that proves that you're actually serious about the academic comeback, and I know you'll be applying those tips ASAP to your study routine. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, because I'll be posting more content to do with productivity, studying, and becoming a well-rounded person in general. Also, please consider checking my socials. The links will be in the description down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.